ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our dear viewers of Salam TV, this is your beloved Alhidaayah show, always every Monday 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Oh yeah, we appreciate Islam and science. Today we are going to appreciate the DNA, miracles of the human body, but more specifically the DNA. Today is 14th Rabi Ithan 1447. That is on the Islamic calendar, or after the migration of the beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We are approaching the Independence Day of Uganda, and inshallah today is 6th October 2025, and on 9th that will be the Independence Day. We are thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the bounty of rain, for the downpour that has happened all over Kampala. We thank him and we pray that he blesses he blesses us with that. We are going to appreciate Islam and science, and as I have mentioned earlier, we are going to appreciate the DNA, that blueprint that you obtain characteristics from the generation to generation. We're going to appreciate it and see how Islam, or what is the stake of Islam about this. In the studio, I have Mr. Hamza Sekalema, a lecturer at Islamic University in Uganda, who is going to be with us as we appreciate this bounty, the DNA, the blueprint of human life. Mr. Hamza Sekalema, you're most welcome, sir.
Naam, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillahi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the opportunity to be here, and especially for the guidance that he gives us to be Muslim. For our dear listener, this religion of Islam is the final guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to mankind, and it has two compressed forms. The first one being the Quran, which is a very highly compressed formula of what Allah wants from us. He defines who he is through his signs, then he tells us what he wants of us. A very simple message. Then he expands it through the actions of the Prophet. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ becomes a live example of how this Quran is supposed to be translated into action, and that is all. Very simple religion. That's why you see this religion of Islam becoming very popular within societies that have tried all things in life and things don't work. Some have tried materialism, others have tried creating all kinds of religious doctrines, but ultimately they get back to the simple message. So today we are continuing with our discussion of the miracles of our bodies, because Allah has instructed us, وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. So he wants us to look into ourselves and see the signs and appreciate his existence and worship him. Now,
our dear viewer of Salam TV, please do not miss these interesting shows. I always remind you to download the Afro mobile app. The Afro mobile app, with your as little as 1,000, you get to stream 24 hours and you enjoy all these interesting shows. That is the Alhidaayah show every Monday 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. and also the other shows. There are all other channels on the Afro mobile app. I expound you and remind you to download it and pay that small subscription within Hi Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Mr. Hamza Sekalema, today we are talking about the DNA, or the blueprint of human life. The DNA, what is it in details that our dear viewer would appreciate?
Now, our dear viewers, we usually want to avoid the heavy medical content within this study of our bodies, but we keep it as simple as possible. So DNA is a short form. So the full form is deoxyribonucleic acid. Deoxyribonucleic acid. So that is the full form. But of course, you don't need to memorize the full form in case you are not part of the medical domain. DNA is enough. Everyone knows about it.
Yeah.
Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is praised with a sifa, or an attribute of beginning the creation, then multiplying it. وَالَّذِي يَبْدَأُ الْخَلْقَ ثُمَّ يُعِيدُهُ. So very important something there, because you can create one thing, one sample, but to multiply it, and to multiply it consistently in that it does not again end up with a lot of problems, is where the miracle of creation is. And that is how even in human manufacturing, that's how countries like Uganda differ from others like China.
Yes.
The Ugandans can create a car. They can create, if they really sat down and put effort, but to multiply it at such a rate that you can even sell to others is where the whole problem is. So we end up having to buy from those that have capacity to multiply. Yeah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins the creation. He puts up a form. Then he also puts a mechanism for its multiplication, duplicating that creation in such a way that it maintains its perfect design,
very stable,
yet it has a lot of those kinds of things. So for human beings and indeed other creatures, Allah has designed a very simple coding mechanism that he uses to multiply creation in a way that is consistent, and that is all. So this DNA therefore is some kind of acid, because the name includes the word acid, so primarily it's an acid. Yes. So it is the one that gives you the formula of how you'll finally come out as a new creation. And interestingly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it in such a way that we transfer it from one generation to another, meaning he does not need to create a new piece for every human being. He simply creates the first piece, then we keep multiplying by intermixing, and we go forward. The other interesting thing about human beings is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it compulsory for us to keep varying our DNA. That's why we have prohibitions against marrying your daughters, marrying your sisters, and other relatives.
For our the genetic defects,
so that you don't again, so that you increase variation of this DNA. Each new generation should involve a mixture of this blueprint. A blueprint for buildings, the architects start by creating a drawing of the building, and they do a very detailed drawing of that building, so that when the engineer comes to construct, he does not need to imagine anything in his head. The entire building is there, visually drawn, so his job is to put the bricks and other things that form that building in real life, but it is there. And that is why it is even compulsory. You don't construct a building in a modern human society without having that blueprint, because the blueprint shows very clearly what that building will be once it is fully constructed. So all the theories can be done about that building, and nowadays with AI and other things, you can even model that building and actually see exactly how it will behave once it's constructed, and the rest is very simple. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has therefore built this blueprint, and he has forced us to make it variable by prohibiting us from sharing DNA between close relatives. Because if you are brother and sister, once you combine your DNA, you produce a very inferior product. So you need to have DNA from another totally external party, and the story grows and moves forward. So that DNA is very specific for people that are related. That's why you see whenever they run the tests, as we may see later, they tend to produce similarity of DNA. That's the whole way of relating people. Sekalema has a son, Muhammad. How do we know that these people are connected? The extreme similarity of their DNA. And because DNA is a really foundational piece of definition of the human being, yes, you can't create it, you can't like edit.
And you can't edit apart from
because I think if human beings could edit, and they would have already edited, because the tests tend to result in some chaos in case the result is not what was expected. If a person has been feeding some child thinking that this is
no longer useful
so meaning if the cheating party could edit the DNA and make it resemble the expected, it would be very simple. So blueprint, Allah has coded the entire structure of how you'll finally form as a human being, and it is there in your DNA. Then he also uses now the blueprint. Interestingly, the blueprint is like some kind of very large structure, but which is not fully active.
True.
But now Allah has again designed another mechanism of choosing what to activate within this entire large blueprint. So that's why two parents, this one and this, mother and father, they produce children, but the children don't resemble. Because theoretically you would think, if I'm having some two children, so the video here gives us a very simple way. So this is the interior of a cell.
Yes.
Within that cell, there's a very small part which is in the center called the nucleus, and inside there is where you find that chromosome.
Carrying our DNA.
So now they've expanded the chromosome, and they are showing you that within that chromosome there is a DNA.
Yes.
Very important.
Very stable material that
So you will see that although these parents are the same, so we don't expect that their DNA is changing, but they produce children that are not necessarily coming out the same. Each child looks a bit different from the other. Interestingly, even the twins, except twins that are identical, the fraternal ones sometimes are even opposite of one another. This one is talkative, the other one is very silent. So you can see that even in scenarios where people have even shared the womb and the parents are exactly the same, still Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a mechanism that separates these people and creates some variation. So DNA therefore gives you the blueprint. But from that DNA, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates RNA, which is another material. Then RNA is what now creates the proteins. Now these proteins are the ones that are responsible for the final action that goes on within your cells.
Because they become hormones, they become
so therefore Allah has now created a mechanism where the blueprint is there, the DNA, but it is not all automatically activated. You have to go through those 3 steps, and finally you are able to create what will come out as a human being that has eyes of a certain shape that resemble those of the parents. And all of this is the miracle that Allah subhanahu has created for us. So he enables generations to connect to one another. You may find a child today does not seem to resemble the parents, but when you look 2 generations back, the child is resembling some of the grandparents. So meaning that appearance was deactivated across these 2 generations, and it has finally come out from this person that has been born a few generations later. So very interesting there. Another interesting thing that we may need to know about this DNA business is that we do also have what are called genes. Genes, G-E-N-E. They are also part of what defines you as a human being at a micro level. So DNA is not exactly the genes. The genes are part of DNA. But they are saying just 2% of the DNA are the genes. And some time back, the scientists used to imagine that the rest of this DNA is just junk, does not serve any purpose. And that's, by the way, one thing we should note about we the scientists. Many times when we don't know the purpose of something, we simply conclude that it is useless. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already commanded us and said, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. So that verse indicates that we human beings, Allah has only given us a very tiny part of the knowledge that is needed. So for Muslim scientists or people that do look at the knowledge of creation from a a perspective of Islam, we always accept that we do not know what is next. Meaning, if you've seen a feature and you are not really aware of what it does, you simply say, I do not know, instead of concluding that it is actually useless, because later they actually realize that this, what they've been calling junk DNA, is actually very critical in determining how these genes finally activate. So it means that today you don't know the purpose, but tomorrow another person with more advanced learning will be able to discover. So the wiser way is to conclude that our knowledge ends here. That is what Allah has enabled us to discover, and the rest we move forward with it. So you have genes that are part of the DNA, and they determine how far you go. For us in Islam, the Prophet ﷺ has indicated to us that for those of us that marry, the men worry a lot about the lineage of the person that you marry, meaning the nature. Because as far way back as the time of the Prophet ﷺ indicated that the genes follow one another, meaning if you have a parent that has a negative trait, it is very simple for that to end up within the children. So for us within Islam, therefore, you were instructed to worry about this person that you are trying to make the mother of your children, and vice versa. Be it that you are a lady and you are trying to get married, you don't just rush with the emotions, you worry about the traits, because this DNA that Allah has built within us, it moves from one generation to another. Yes, you may survive one generation and some of those traits have not been activated, but they remain there. The blueprint remains essentially the same, and it is waiting for activation depending on the way the sequence works. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it in such a way that that DNA moves for generations and generations, and it's not changing. And that's how we are able to determine that this one is related to this one, because we compare their DNA and it is a match of up to 99%. That's how the science of DNA is essentially. You don't argue with it. Once we see similarity, there is no other explanation except that these two are related. Or, in the case we are imagining that people are related, but we find that the DNA is not matching at all, we don't do any discussion. We simply conclude that there is no connection between these people, as it were.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mustafa. Now, dear viewer of Salam TV, we're going to go in for a short break. But as we are going in for a short break, we have been appreciating the human DNA, the blueprint of the instructions that make up our body, and we've appreciated that they are genes that carry instructions from generation to the other, and part of the DNA, which are not the genes, they are the promoters and the activators, because you need different proteins at a given time. You might be needing them for digestion as enzymes, or the other time you might be needing them as hormones to regulate other physical and chemical reactions or systems of the body. We're going to stop at this. We're going for a short break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yes, Salam TV.
Don't miss out on being part of the ultimate game changer. Omumaniwa Salam TV is expanding nationwide, bringing life-changing prizes to all Ugandans. Everyone can win, including cars, Haji and Umrah pilgrimages, land titles, hard cash, home furniture, TV sets, and many others. Partner with us in this noble cause and let's transform lives together. Don't miss out. Call or WhatsApp 0776 988 064 or 0702 988 064 for more information. Get ready to win from June 10th, 2025 to February 14th, 2026.
In the midst of grief, war begins to whisper. Some battles are personal.
Where reason ends, force begins.
You asked, we delivered.
We need to make Damali pay for everything that she's done.
Watch 5 days of drama, 5 days of Damalai, Mondays to Fridays at 8:30 p.m. on Pal Magic Prime when you subscribe to Kawiki.
I'm one of the scientists now doing research on plastic technology recycling, where we can be able to produce other products from plastic waste. For example, we are trying to develop a plastic tile with sand plastic tile, that it is unbreakable, it can be shifted from one roof to another. So this is a project we are working on. It's our initiative as Kazire Group of trying to reduce waste from the environment. Brothers and sisters, Taso Butonde for a better Uganda.
This message is brought to you by National Environment Management Authority, Kampala Capital City Authority, Vivo Energy, Airco, Pepsi, Stanbic Bank and NBS TV. Better steady, be better.
Amanya bampita waswa Ben. Kyenyinza okugamba ku bantu be bafera. Olina kukuuma ssimu yo nga tobudde muntu pini kodi yo. Bamugaba bamusindikidde emitwalo bagyali 9. Message nejja ku ssimu naye nga sente ku mobile money tezikola ki? Teziriiko. Kati ne bamugamba waliwo kodi gye bamugamba okunyiga n'anyigamu. Kati sente ze bwe yanyigamu ku pini kodi ye bw'ati. Sente ze zali ku mobile money ne bazikola ki?
In partnership with Uganda Communications Commission and NBS.
Okulinyisa omutindo gwa Afro Mobile. Eno yengeri joyinza okuzza obujja omutindo gwa Afro Mobile yo. Funa app ya Afro Mobile okuva ku mukutu gwa Google Store oba App Store oba ku mutimbagano gwa www.afromobile.com. Londako forgotten password. Tekamu account yo eya Afro Mobile ozebujja pin code yo. Ojja kufuna obubaka ku email yo okuli ne code empya. Bw'oteekamu code eyo olwo pin yo empya ekkirizibwe. Afro Mobile, emboozi za Africa ezannamaddala.
The Electoral Commission informs the public that nominations for the 2026 general elections will take place as follows. Presidential candidates 23rd to 24th of September 2025 at Lubowa Reza. Members of Parliament from 15th to the 16th October 2025 at the gazetted district/city nomination centers. Local government 3rd to the 24th of September 2025 at gazetted district and sub-county nomination centers. All aspiring candidates are reminded to carefully follow the official guidelines. Nomination forms and details are available at district city offices on www.ec.or.ug.
Eno ye Salam TV.
Our dear viewers, we'll be back from that short break. This is the Alhidaayah show every Monday 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. where we appreciate Islam and science. I am Alkam Mayanja, the host for this show, and today we are appreciating the human DNA. If you want to watch this show, you can download the Afro Mobile app and you subscribe. 1 day 1,000. You subscribe for the whole, you watch and stream for 24 hours. Don't miss these interesting shows, and all other channels are there on the Afro Mobile app. Today we are appreciating the human DNA, and Mr. Hamza Sekalema, a lecturer at University, Islamic University in Uganda, is here in the studio. And in the first session we've looked at the genes and the promoters. We've said that the DNA has its parts. Some of them are the genes that carry these instructions of our characters, and then some other parts are the deactivators and the activators, because at a certain moment you need a different protein, and at the other moment you need a different proteins. You might be needing the proteins for digestion, those are the enzymes, and now that is the function for that. And then you might be needing the other proteins for as hormones to carry out different physiological functions of the human body. So these promoters and the deactivators on our DNA will do that work of timing when and which protein is required. And he has also appreciated and informed us about the stability of this DNA to span from one generation to the other. Mr. Hamza Sekalema, what is this DNA that you've told us about? Which more facts can you tell us about this DNA as far as Islam is concerned.
Now, the other interesting fact about this DNA is that within a single cell, remember we have billions of cells within our bodies, but within just one cell, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has compressed that DNA, but in case you are to pull it out and stretch it, you'd get around 2 meters. Just imagine that invisible cell, because the cells are not what you see on your skin. These ones are already very many cells. So just one small cell, if you pull out the DNA strands the way they have been compressed by Allah and you pull them out like this, you get around 2 meters. Now, an interesting scenario arises. So how about if you are to pull out for the entire body?
Yes.
The distance is just very interesting. 74 billion kilometers.
Allah Akbar Kabir. That could be an equivalent of a distance from here to the from the earth to the sun and back.
Allah is some of these facts.
Allah Akbar.
If you stretch your entire DNA content in that body of yours,
of all the
you'll
cells,
get 74 billion kilometers of that
Allah
material. And to bring it closer to our understanding, it is the distance from the sun to a planet called Neptune. Neptune is one of the very last. And back,
Allah.
then you go back
Allah.
and back.
That is the distance equivalent to the entire DNA.
Actually 8 times, because they are saying round trip from the sun to Neptune and back.
Allah.
And all that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has compressed it within your body, and it is there keeping that body of yours stable, keeping you appearing the way you are appearing, defining your body shape, how tall you'll be, how big you'll turn out. 74 billion kilometers of that DNA. Remember that the DNA is not your entire body, so it's not like we have stretched everything in the body, just that structure that keeps the critical information about your existence. So for those of us that still imagine that these things didn't occur out of an intelligent force behind them, you see there was a movement of one creature, it became another. There is no way these things can occur. So that is another fact about this DNA that we need to note.
Yes.
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fits it into that cell of yours by compression until it is in such a way that it can fit into that cell. So to build that DNA, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a code of chemicals. Here the medics give them letters. There is A, yes, there is a T,
thymine,
there is a G, and then a C.
Cytosine.
So you have those chemicals, A, T, G, C. But those chemicals within that single cell of yours, which we said you'll stretch and you get some 2 meters, you have 3 billion of them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us in a very special way. The numbers, and we have been looking at the human body for quite some time, but everything you reach at, you begin to go into billions, all just within one single human being, and the majority of these things being too small to even be seen by you as a person. But Allah puts them there, keeps them stable, because at such sizes you would think really instability would definitely set in, because how do you maintain accuracy with such extremely large numbers? Just one cell, they're already 3 billion. Then you have all these extremely long strands. You'd think there would occur some mistakes. 74 billion kilometers, and there is no mistake anywhere. The things are well patterned, and they are defining the very nature of this person, and the person stays stable for all these years. It is something that we need to be able to note. Now,
I think our dear viewers should also appreciate that some of our cells do not contain this DNA, more specifically the red blood cells that carry our oxygen. And Allah made it definitely that they don't have a nucleus, and so no DNA, meaning you carry more oxygen. Because it is an important.
Instead of loading it with the DNA that would again make it. So the red cells, for them, their job is just to maintain your body in good functional order. So the ones that that form the rest of your body structure are the ones that contain this DNA. DNA for each of us, we human beings, is divided into 23 pairs of what are called chromosomes. So meaning you have like two towers. There is a 23 this side and there is 23 this side. So meaning total for the human being, you have your 46, and they are the ones that form your entire, the definition of who you are and everything about you. So when human beings come together to create another new human being or a child, each brings 23. And that is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this variation that we see among the human beings. And it still remains stable. So each parent will bring 23. So you have the mother with her 23 and the father with her 23.
That are carrying the genes
that are carrying the genetic material. So for each of the parents, you take 23 and you are, and that begins on your journey of definition. But like we said, these parents are always sharing these 23 to 23 for each child, but you still see that the children don't actually resemble. Even the fraternal twins, they even conceived on the same day, I think even under the same conditions. They have lived in the same womb for the 9 months. They have come out essentially, because I don't think they are twins who like are separated by like a week or.
No, maybe it can't happen.
So you are born like the twins that I was blessed with. Their birth was separated by around 5 minutes, meaning essentially they are born at the same time. But you'll find they don't come out the same. So variations still exist, although the core content that Allah has put up to define who you are remains essentially the same. So all those are facts that we need to appreciate. The whole idea is to bring out this entire concept of DNA so that you can appreciate that within that body of yours, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put a miracle that human beings can never ever be able to create anything that is similar to it. We human beings tend to also use Allah's methods of creation in order to come up with something else. Yes. So we use the idea, all these things like aircrafts and etc. We copy what Allah has already designed and we use it to enhance our lives. And that is the best way that Allah has made us different from other creatures. He says, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. So essentially he declares that he has made us in the best form. But in case you compare yourself with the vision of an ego, the capacity of an ego to see, you'll see as if the ego is light years away ahead of you in terms of ability to see, ability to hear. If you compare yourself with the leopard, a creature that can hear small movements nearly 200 meters away. You can't compare yourself to an elephant that will be able to sense water hundreds or tens of kilometers away. So you would imagine that you are actually not the ahsan khalq, meaning you may contest and say, but if you are saying ahsan taqweem, how come everything I compare with the animals, I end up losing out what Allah has given you? That capacity to innovate and to create machines, and it is only we human beings that have been able to attain that, and through that we are able to see even the ego. Yes, it will see this rat that is on the ground, but for us we see galaxies billions of kilometers away from where we are. So these ones are all sifat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put within us, and he has maintained that stability to keep our bodies, the very complex structures that we have been studying here for months, but simply using structures like DNA. Each one has their own definition and it stays stable for some time.
Our dear viewer of Salam TV would like to appreciate some of the DNA tests or the genetic tests, because we've seen majority of them. We see them in newborn babies, we've seen them in diseases, we've seen them in mutations. Of course, they cause diseases and cancers, because we hear cancer is also from a mutation of
yes.
this DNA.
So the common application of this DNA here that people keep singing about in Uganda is merely determining if people are connected by blood. But the DNA testing has other applications. Like, for example, we can check when children are born, immediately when they are born, we can be able to screen and see what particular traits these children have that could end up being a problem to them. In that case, metabolic conditions, because already Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us some knowledge of how this DNA will finally translate into reality. So be it that people have abnormalities in metabolic or the body functions or etc. So that screening is done in some countries to determine, to somehow predict if there will be any anomalies that we can intervene in when this child is born. So that is one form of screening, apart from the other one that where we are testing a connection between people. Then we may also need to test career status. Now, for example, here the most common ailment that really disorganizes families is this sickle cell business, and that one we go and do a test. But there are other traits that you can be able to test to see if this person can have traits that will be that can carry on from one generation to another. That testing is also done in order to be able to determine if this person has these mutations. A mutation is an abnormality. But remember, we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this DNA structure, and it is very stable and it's within His command. So when we see what we call a mutation, it is we human beings that are concluding that this is an abnormality. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not face abnormalities. So it's not that He creates the DNA, then the human being is born, then out of the blue he loses control over how it is moving and it lands in some mutation form. No, everything that you see has already been written by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He has full control over it. Otherwise, if we were to lose control for even a microsecond, the majority of creation would simply die. Our bodies are very complicated and they need to be sustained. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately calls Himself Rabbil Alameen. So the Rabb, the one that maintains and sustains these creatures, that is a very important sifa about that. Then the other test that they do carry out is somehow related to the earlier one, determining, it is called predictive or a pre-symptomatic test, a test where you determine the risk of developing certain diseases in life later, like cancers. So in that case, you are not looking at necessarily what carries on from one point to another, but you are looking at an anomaly that may cause something like cancer. And in our generation, you will see that there is a lot of cancer in every direction. Possibly it comes out of what we eat, or the environment is heavily polluted. But those are things that we see in our generation, and possibly if we were in countries that do support some of this prediction when the child is born, you can make interventions that prevent this kind of problem. Then there is another test which is called pharmacogenomic testing. So in that case, you are testing for medications, because you see, when we get sick, we add some chemicals to our bodies, and after some time we become well. So meaning we support the body's ability to repair and fight negative elements. But it's not that each and every one of us responds in the same way to medications. So the pharmacogenomic test will allow you to see whether this particular person will be able to respond to certain medications, certain doses, etc. There are people who, if you put anything like sulfur within their bodies, oh, the body becomes some kind of bomb, and everywhere the body explodes into a very terrible reaction. So meaning, not everyone's body responds exactly the same way to medication. So these are some of the things that will come in the future. And I believe that as technology becomes more advanced and things become cheaper to do, because this DNA sequencing used to be a very complicated thing at the start, but nowadays it's a lot cheaper and it's becoming even more cheaper. As we go into AI and etc., I believe a time will come when some of these tests are just even something you do just like the way we do malaria. And it will possibly be a very important factor in human medical care, because if you can predict ailments, that's the very best, meaning before someone even gets sick, you are able to see that this one within the next 2 weeks he will possibly face this problem and you intervene. That will be possibly the very best in human care. So those are some of the things that we could look at today regarding DNA. We also have DNA in forensics. You find a person has died, maybe a whole 10 years have passed. How do you identify this person? So DNA is also there to help in that kind of business. And a lot of other applications that human beings have finally come. There are cases in the US where people were convicted and even sentenced to years in jail over things like rape or murder. And the advent of DNA was instrumental in clearing them. They later found that this person is not even connected in any way to the scene of the crime. So these are all miracles that Allah has put in our bodies, and they help us to identify similarities within us and to predict disease and so many other applications as we go by in knowledge. So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us more knowledge and to help us to appreciate each and everything is a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hamza Sekalema. As we are concluding our show today, the human DNA, I've been looking at Surah Al-Qiyamah, the 3rd and the 4th verse, and I've seen Allah questioning us, does man think we will not assemble his bones? Yes, we are able even to proportion his fingertips or the fingerprints. So you understand that all this information is being stored in the DNA, in your very DNA. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reassures us that He will resurrect us, and even the tiniest, all the most, what we are looking at as the most difficult, our fingerprints, they will be unique in nature. This is the Alhidaayah show, and today we have appreciated the human DNA, where we've seen that the red blood cells per se, they don't have this DNA, they don't have the nucleus, and so they don't have the DNA. Why? To accommodate more and more oxygen for our bodies to function normally, and we appreciate it, and we are very healthy. We've also looked at the different tests that are done, the paternity tests that we are always seeing, the newborn. We've also looked at the carrier status, that is for sickle cell, the genetic diseases or disabilities that do happen. We may not proceed from here. This is the Alhidaayah show every Monday, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., where we appreciate Islam and science. I'm Rain Alkam Mayanja, your host. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu wa rahmatullah.
Eno, yes, Salam TV.